it's my pleasure to bring to the podium Congressman Jim Ryun.
That I have 4 children and 7 grandchildren. I want to tell you that I have 1 more grandchild. Last night our daughter Heather and her husband, who's a major in the Air Force, just gave birth to our 8th granddaughter, our 8th grandchild, and she is 6 pounds 13 ounces, 19 inches long, and she votes Republican. So, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here today. As you know, I have filed once again to run to represent the United States, represent you in the United States House of Representatives. After losing in November of 2006, I wasn't so sure I wanted to do this again, but I started getting phone calls and knocks on my door encouraging me to jump back in the race. And then as I traveled throughout the district, I was overwhelmed by your encouragement. In February of last year, I hosted a town hall type meeting in Manhattan. Over 175 people showed up. It was inspiring and it was humbling at the same time. After a lot of prayer and reflection, I announced my candidacy, and I've been on the ground campaigning full time. And I've also watched as the current Congresswoman has proven herself to be the reliable party follower we worried that she would be, ready to carry out Nancy Pelosi's orders no matter what's best for Kansas. I've watched as Nancy Boyda votes party over principle and sides with Nancy Pelosi nearly 92% of the time. Just last week, she voted for the largest tax increase in American history. What does that exactly mean? It means that Kansans will be paying an average of $2,863 each in taxes next year alone. The Democrat tax alone comes at a time when Kansans are being asked to pay more at the pump and more for health care coverage, and this isn't right. If you do not think the tax increases will affect you, you might want to consider the following examples, just how close to home higher taxes will hit you. Just a few examples. Nearly 48 million married couples will be penalized with a $3,000 tax increase. Families will be hit with the child tax credit when it is cut by $500 per child. Almost 18 million senior citizens will have to pay an additional $2,100 in taxes. About 27 million small business owners will be strapped with a $4,000 tax increase. And reinstating the death tax will cost taxpayers an additional $180.6 billion. The direction the current Congresswoman is leading us is a big reason why I believe my work is not done. The position I find myself in now is a position I've been in before, and it's a challenge I welcome. In the 1972 Olympic Games in Munich, I was tripped and fell during the qualifying heat, but I got back up and finished the race. I liken that race to this one. I stumbled, but there is yet more race to run, and I feel my work in Washington is not done. Track is a team sport, but it's also an individual sport. When I went to the Olympics, I represented the United States, but when the starter's whistle went off, I was the only one there on the track. As a congressman, I was proud of my party, but I was the one responsible for my votes, and I had to do what was right for Kansas. For example, when No Child Left Behind was proposed, I visited high school administrators, principals, teachers, school board members throughout the 2nd District, and they voiced their belief that No Child Left Behind was the wrong choice for Kansas. They said no progress saw handed down by Washington. I believe that you need to listen to the people on the ground, the people who know firsthand. I took to council and I voted against No Child Left Behind. Medicare Part D, a massive spending increase. The analysis of the bill was that only $1 in every $16 being spent would go to those needing prescription drug assistance the most. It would further imperil an already failing and weakened system, and the bill would add another $1 trillion to our current deficit. I listened and I voted against it. It's the same question confronted the current Congresswoman to vote her party's leadership or do what is right for the district or for the nation. I think it's very clear what her answer is. I think she's already shown us what her loyalties are. With immigration reform, we have the chance to demonstrate our commitment to the principle of equal justice under the law. It's a fundamental premise of our government. But there's nothing equal about giving amnesty to illegal immigrants. That is pardoning those who have broken the law while cheapening the sacrifices and efforts of those who have come here the right way. While serving in Congress, I was recognized for leadership in helping pass the House Immigration Bill. This bill provided for funding for securing a fence along the border. It created a pilot program for e-verification, and it stiffened the penalties for those helping illegals cross the border. I visited the Mexican border, shared with Arizona, and I talked with the U.S. Border Patrol agents. They say the fence is working. They tell me there's significant less crime located on the American side and the Mexican side as well, and they have fewer repeat offenders as well. The solution, I believe, then, is enforcement. Enforcement of the laws already on the books, and enforcement of the border by providing the funding necessary to increase border security. The progress we've made over the years regarding tax relief is now being reversed. In this race, there is a clear difference on the issues of taxes. When I first got to Washington, I began right away working on federal tax relief. I met with Ways and Means Chairman Bill Archer. We talked about ways to lower the tax burden on hardworking American families, especially those with children. When we started talking about this, and it was called the child tax credit, it was $250 per child. Because of the Bush tax cuts, it's now $1,000 per child. But these tax cuts are set to expire in 2010, and the tax rates most likely will revert back to $500 per child. We need someone to step up and make sure this doesn't happen. I voted for the tax relief in 2001. I voted for the tax relief in 2003, and I will vote to permanently extend the tax cuts if you send me back to Washington to do the work for you. Over the past decade, the Kansas state government has not shown a similar commitment to reducing spending or lowering taxes. What is even more disheartening is that it is not just the Democrats in Topeka that have voted for these tax increases. Some Republicans have supported these irresponsible tax hikes as well. We have seen time and time again, some members of our state legislature fail to live up to Republican ideals of fiscal responsibility. Some have voted to increase the state sales tax. Some have voted to expand the death tax. Some have voted to increase the gas tax. Some have even supported taxing the internet. It comes as no surprise that these same people refuse to sign the Kansas Taxpayer Network pledge not to raise taxes. Kansans cannot afford to send a Republican to Washington that has a record of raising taxes of $360 million in Kansas alone. And I want you to know, if you send me back to Washington, I will not vote to increase your taxes. Spending is another big reason why Kansans do not trust Washington. As I travel throughout the district, earmark reform is a huge issue. Kansans are fed up with Washington spending money on pet projects, and that is why I pledge not to seek any new earmark reforms should you elect me to Congress. I am the only candidate, Republican or Democrat, who has made this pledge. I hope others will follow. In office, you'll have to worry about my priorities. Plain and simple, I put Kansas first, our interest above all interest. The 2006 political environment was the worst since Watergate, and we paid a price. Yet we lost by only 6,000 votes, votes that are well within our power to win back. In 2006, we had Governor Sebelius at the top of the ticket, and she carried the state with 60% of the vote. Next, we had a very divisive Attorney General race, and then you got to my race. But this is not 2006. This election will have a Republican nominee at the top who will probably carry the state with 60% of the vote in the district as well, followed by Senator Roberts. Then you'll have our race. The playing field already looks better regardless of who the Democrat nominee is, and I think we can take this seat back if we're really ready for it. The race is not about me, and I want to make that very clear. It's about the principles we value as a nation. The electorate of 2006 wanted to send a message to government, but had they foreseen the consequences of Washington under the Democrat leadership, increasing taxes, caving in to big labor, pandering to the left wing of the party, I believe they would have reconsidered. And now is the time to reconsider. During my time in Congress, I set priorities. I heard what people had to say, and I made those tough choices. I was proud of my conservative record and my support for lower taxes, of my call for responsible spending, of my demand that the military get the resources it needed. That is why I'm in this race, to take up the issues that are important to Kansas and to continue the work that I have already begun. My primary opponent likes to talk about statistics. Well, I have a good one for you. I beat Nancy Boyda once, and with your help, we will beat her again. Our message of lower taxes and putting an ending to wasteful spending is a convincing one that resounds throughout the 2nd District. With your help, we can restore leadership to the House of Representatives and put Kansans and Kansas before San Francisco and principle before party. I ask that you join me as we work on regaining this seat and putting common sense back in Congress. Thank you very much for listening.